Welcome to The Debate. Walk into your child's bedroom tonight. Look at them, staring into the glowing screen. They are physically there, sitting on the bed. But are they really there? The truth is, we invited a monster into our homes to cure our boredom. And because we didn't want to pay the piper, he took our children instead. Tonight, we expose the dark psychology of the attention economy.
Yeah, it is honestly one of the most chilling frameworks proposed by modern sociologists. They are looking at the ancient folklore of the Pied Piper of Hamelin and realizing it isn't just a fairy tale.
Right, it's something much more real.
Exactly. It is a terrifyingly accurate, almost prophetic allegory for Silicon Valley, and we really need to unpack that today.
So just to set the foundation for this, in the original tale, a desperate town hires a mysterious piper to lure away a plague of rats. The piper succeeds, but when the town refuses to pay him, he plays a different tune.
A much darker tune.
Yeah. He mesmerizes the children and leads them into a mountain cave, and they are never seen again. Today we are taking this material and asking a profound question about the era we live in. Are we witnessing the tragic, systematic loss of a generation to addictive screen time? Or is this dark warning just the latest manifestation of a perennial generational panic over new technology?
Well, as the sociological perspective here, I argue we have to take the warning literally. This isn't just another medium. The modern attention economy is a weaponized psychological extraction machine.
Right.
It is actively paralyzing the cognitive development of an entire generation.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective. I hear the severity in your voice, but we really need to look at history here. The source material establishes that the rats represent human boredom, and, we invited tech companies into our homes to cure that boredom with free apps.
Which they certainly did.
Right, I concede that point entirely. Society demanded a cure for the discomfort of doing nothing. But, every single generation panics when the medium changes. When the printing press was invented, scholars panicked that people would lose their memories.
Sure, but
when dime novels became popular, society fretted that youth were disconnecting from reality. We saw the same panic with radio, television, and early video games. The children haven't been lured into a digital cavern. These screens are simply the new village square. They are adapting to a digital reality.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. To equate the infinite scroll of a modern algorithmically driven platform to a printed book or, say, a television set is a massive category error. We refused to pay with money, expecting everything to be free, so payment was extracted in a far more sinister currency.
You mean their attention?
Attention, dopamine, and the psychological development of our children. This is not a village square. It is an environment explicitly designed by behavioral psychologists to hijack the brain through endless short-form content.
Okay, but how so? It's all media consumption, right? Past generations sat in front of a television screen for 4 hours a day, passively absorbing broadcast programming, and we eventually accepted it as a cultural norm.
Yeah, but it's different because of the mechanism of delivery. Television broadcasts the exact same program to millions of people. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's a natural stopping cue.
Sure.
The broadcast doesn't watch you while you watch it.
And you're saying the algorithm does?
Exactly. When a child reads a novel, the book is not actively analyzing their eye movements to determine the precise emotional trigger required to keep them reading for another 3 hours. The algorithms we are discussing today have no stopping cues.
Right, they just keep going.
They are designed around intermittent variable rewards. That is the exact same behavioral psychology used in casino slot machines.
Let's break that down for a second, because variable reward sounds very clinical. What does that actually look like for a kid sitting on their bed?
Well, it looks like an unpredictable payout of dopamine. When you pull the lever on a slot machine, you don't know if you're going to win, lose, or hit the jackpot.
And that uncertainty is the hook.
Yes, that uncertainty is what makes the brain obsessively pull the lever again. Social media feeds operate on the exact same premise. You swipe up, maybe the next video is boring.
Yeah.
You swipe again, maybe it's mildly funny. You swipe again, and bam, it's a highly sensationalized, perfectly targeted piece of outrage or comedy that floods your brain with dopamine. It's the unpredictability that creates the addiction.
But calling it an addiction implies the user, particularly the youth, is entirely a passive victim. Society had a problem, the rats of human boredom. And let's be honest, boredom in the modern industrialized world is deeply uncomfortable.
It is?
The tech giants offered a cure. Why are we framing the consumption of short-form content as this sinister mesmerization?
Because of the price being extracted. Look at the specific warning in the sociological text. Because we demanded that the cure for our boredom be completely free, the payment was extracted in that more sinister currency.
The dopamine.
Exactly. If you're listening right now and wondering why your teenage snaps at you when you ask them to put the phone down for dinner, it's not because they are just being stubborn or disrespectful. It's because you are interrupting a carefully engineered, highly potent dopamine loop.
I get that it disrupts their focus in the moment, but you're arguing that this permanently alters their cognitive development. Are we sure we aren't just romanticizing stillness? You say the price extracted is their development, but biological development is always relative to the environment in which the organism must survive.
Wait, really? You think a constant state of hyperarousal is a survival adaptation?
I think the future is highly networked, rapidly shifting, and demands the ability to filter massive amounts of disparate information in seconds. You look at a kid scrolling through a feed, processing 100 different contexts in 5 minutes, and you see a broken attention span.
Because it is broken.
Well, I see cognitive triage. When a kid is managing 3 different digital conversations while simultaneously filtering out irrelevant algorithmic bait to find actual news or trends, they are essentially performing high-level data sorting. That's a cognitive skill we simply didn't need 30 years ago.
I have to push back there. That isn't a cognitive skill. It is the erosion of deep focus disguised as productivity. Let me explain what is physically happening in the brain.
Go ahead.
When a brain is subjected to that level of constant, unnatural stimulation, it attempts to protect itself. It downregulates its dopamine receptors.
Downregulates, meaning it numbs itself?
Think of it like building a tolerance to caffeine. If you drink 5 shots of espresso every day, eventually 1 cup of coffee does absolutely nothing for you.
Right, you need more to feel awake.
Exactly. The more you flood the adolescent brain with cheap, algorithmic thrills, the more the brain turns down its own volume to cope. Suddenly, the baseline of everyday life, like reading a physical book, sitting in a classroom, or just looking out a window, is simply too quiet to register.
It feels boring.
It feels physically agonizing to them. The price the piper extracts is their mental health. They lose the ability to tolerate stillness, which is the very foundation of creative thought, complex problem solving, and emotional regulation.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it differently. I see the mechanics of the caffeine analogy, but I think the metaphor of the piper needs a slight update. The material suggests the piper is playing a single tune to mesmerize the generation.
He is.
But personalization means relevance. This isn't a single tune. It's a village square. They are finding new forms of connection.
A village square? Really?
Yes, you argue they are being lured away, but look at where they are supposedly going. Through these platforms, they are finding unprecedented forms of connection.
I wouldn't call it connection.
But it is. A teenager struggling with a niche interest or maybe a marginalized identity in a small, isolated town used to just suffer in silence. Now they can find a global community of peers instantly. What sociologists call being disconnected from reality is, frankly, often a failure of adults to understand digital empathy and genuine human connection.
That's a compelling argument. But have you considered that digital empathy is an oxymoron? We are talking about synthetic environments designed by behavioral psychologists to maximize engagement, not foster human connection.
Why can't it be both? When children interact in these digital spaces, they are building complex social hierarchies.
Based on metrics, likes and views.
Sure, but they are also collaborating on massive digital projects and sharing emotional support in ways that are entirely real to them. The physical location sitting alone in the bedroom is irrelevant if the cognitive and emotional engagement is active.
It's highly relevant.
They aren't trapped in a dark cave. They are exploring a new frontier, They are physically present, yes, but psychologically, they are participating in a vast, interconnected network. To say they are lost is to evaluate their digital fluency through an outdated analog metric.
You are entirely dismissing the biological reality of the human animal. We are physically embodied creatures. Our nervous systems, our capacity for empathy, our ability to read microexpressions, to co-regulate our emotions with another human being.
Right.
All of these evolved over millions of years of physical proximity.
But if the connection feels real to the user, who are we to say it isn't?
Because you cannot simply digitize empathy without losing its highest resolution data. Think about what happens when two people share physical space.
Okay.
There's a physiological syncing that occurs. Your pupils dilate, your breathing aligns, your mirror neurons fire in real-time response to the subtle shifts in the other person's face. When they're in that digital cavern, communicating via text or highly curated short-form video, they are stripped of the somatic experience of being human.
So you think the village square requires physical presence?
A village square requires exposure to diverse viewpoints, the necessity of compromise, and the slow, sometimes awkward process of physical human interaction.
And digital spaces don't have awkward interactions or diverse viewpoints? I mean, I'd argue the internet is nothing but diverse, clashing viewpoints.
Hypnotizes your specific child. It creates echo chambers. It doesn't foster genuine connection. It fosters parasocial relationships and algorithmic reinforcement of existing biases.
I see.
The piper's tune is designed to keep you listening to the piper, not to help you speak to your neighbor. And because their psychological development is the currency being extracted, we are seeing the exact consequences you would expect.
The mental health crisis.
Yes, historic levels of anxiety, depression, and a profound sense of isolation. They are connected to the network, but entirely disconnected from themselves.
Look, I don't deny that anxiety and depression are rising. The data is clear on that. But we also have to consider what this network is actually delivering to them.
What is it delivering besides stress?
Well, you talk about them being isolated in a cavern, but this cavern doesn't shield them from the world. It bombards them with it. These platforms expose children to the existential anxieties of the entire globe simultaneously.
Right.
A 12-year-old today is aware of geopolitical conflicts, macroeconomic trends, and global climate crises in a way that previous generations were blissfully shielded from.
Bombarding them with global trauma, yes, but in a highly curated, fragmented, and sensationalized manner. It's designed to keep them in a state of perpetual hyperarousal. That isn't reality.
It's a lens on reality.
It is a funhouse mirror reflection of reality designed to maximize the time they spend looking at the screen.
Even if it is a funhouse mirror, you are drawing a very hard line between physical reality and digital reality, treating one as authentic and the other as a dangerous illusion. For a generation born into this ecosystem, the digital is reality.
But is it a healthy one?
If a kid learns a new language, organizes a local civic movement, or creates a piece of art that moves thousands of people, all through a digital platform, how can we dismiss that as being disconnected from deep thought?
I'm not dismissing the utility.
Yes, the sociological text warns of a loss of deep thought, but perhaps deep thought as we historically define it, the solitary, uninterrupted contemplation of a single printed text for hours, is just a luxury of a bygone era.
A luxury? It is the bedrock of autonomous human consciousness.
I'm not saying it doesn't have value. I'm saying collaborative, networked intelligence might be the new metric for depth. They aren't solitary thinkers anymore. They are nodes in a massive real-time collective brain.
Okay, let's follow the logic of the Hamelin allegory to its natural, terrifying conclusion then, because you are inadvertently proving the warning right.
How so?
In the fairy tale, the children don't just go for a walk to a new village square. They are led into a mountain cave, and the text is explicit. They are never seen again.
Right.
We have been debating the nature of the transaction and the destination, but we have to face the climax of this sociological warning. The horrifying, intense realization here is that the mountain cave has already closed.
What do you mean already closed? The platforms are still active. Society is still functioning.
I mean, the children are already gone. Look at the kids sitting on the bed. Their physical body remains, but it is just an empty vessel.
That is intensely grim.
It's the reality. Their minds, their attention, their memories, their desires, their very cognitive architecture have literally been outsourced to server farms in California.
Outsourced is a very strong word. They're using a tool.
No, the tool is using them. This is the crux of the extraction. The algorithms know their preferences better than their parents do.
That's probably true in many cases.
In some cases, the algorithms know their insecurities before they even consciously register them. The platforms shape their moods, dictate their purchasing habits, and curate their worldviews.
Like a feedback loop.
It's like living in a digital Truman Show that is tailored specifically to one person's psychological vulnerabilities. We are arguing over whether this is a village square or a cavern, but the reality is the transaction is complete. The Pied Piper has been paid.
Look, I have to admit that is a terrifying way to frame it. If we accept the premise that cognitive architecture is literally being outsourced, that basic functions like memory, navigation, and emotional regulation are now dependent on third-party servers, then the loss of traditional deep thought isn't just a shift in media consumption.
No, it's not.
It is a monumental, perhaps irreversible shift in the human condition.
We gave up the psychological development of our children because we wanted convenient, frictionless, free entertainment. And now the capacity for autonomous, grounded, independent human thought is locked behind an algorithmic wall.
I have maintained throughout this discussion that this is an evolutionary step, an adaptation to a networked digital reality. But, you're right to point out that an evolutionary step can still involve tremendous tragic loss.
Exactly.
The image of the physical body sitting motionless on a bed, while the consciousness is entirely untethered from its immediate physical environment, it brings the horror of the folklore right into the modern living room. If the server goes down, who is the child?
That is the ultimate question.
Even if I view this networked intelligence as an inevitable adaptation, I must concede that the surrender of our inner cognitive autonomy to a profit-driven machine is a profoundly dangerous threshold to cross.
It is the ultimate systemic vulnerability. When you outsource the mind to the machine, you no longer have citizens capable of the critical, sustained reflection necessary to govern a democracy.
Or to challenge the piper.
Precisely. The algorithms don't want you to reflect, they want you to react. And that is why the children in the allegory are never seen again. The version of them that would have developed naturally, the version capable of deep biological empathy, complex problem solving, and rooted physical presence, never gets to exist.
It was traded away.
Traded away for the convenience of the cure.
So this brings us to the core of where we actually agree today. We've examined the dark allegory of the Pied Piper through two very different lenses. On one hand, my perspective, that the digital landscape is a chaotic, evolving village square, where human connection is being rapidly redefined.
Right.
On the other, your stark sociological reality of a dopamine hijacking cavern where the currency of human development is actively extracted.
Yes, and despite our profound disagreement on whether the destination is a frontier or a prison, we have found a critical point of convergence here. We both acknowledge that the payment extracted by the attention economy has fundamentally and permanently altered cognitive development.
It has.
The psychological baseline of the human species is shifting. Whether we view the children as completely lost to a mountain cave or merely transformed into something unprecedented, the undeniable truth is that the transaction occurred.
Unpacking these dark fairy tales offers us an indispensable lens for understanding our modern technological choices. The folklore of Hamelin wasn't just a story about rats. It was a warning about the hidden costs of cheap solutions.
Absolutely.
We invited the tech companies in to cure our boredom, and the price we paid was the very cognitive autonomy of the next generation. There is so much more to explore in this material, so much more to untangle regarding how we navigate this digital reality moving forward. We aren't here to declare a winner today, but to illuminate the depths of the choices we have made. Go ahead, try to call their name while they are holding the screen. See how long it takes for them to hear you. The music is playing and you can't stop it.